The night was calm in the garden. The air was soft. The leaves did not rustle in fear. Nothing ran. Nothing hid. Adam and Eve walked freely beneath the trees. They had never known pain. They had never known shame. They had never known lies. Everything they needed was already given. But in the middle of the garden stood one tree. Just one. They had been told not to eat from it. Not because God was cruel. Not because he wanted to withhold joy. But because love always gives a choice. One evening, as the light softened and shadows stretched across the ground, a voice broke the peace. Not loud. Not angry. Smooth. Curious. Did God really say? It was the serpent. But the serpent was not acting alone. Hidden behind the serpent was Satan, the deceiver, the enemy of God. He did not come with force. He came with words. He did not deny God. He only questioned him. He spoke gently. He spoke slowly. He planted doubt where trust had lived. Eve looked at the tree. She had seen it many times before. But this time, she looked longer. The fruit looked good, beautiful, perfect. Nothing about it looked dangerous. That was the trap. Because temptation rarely looks evil. It looks harmless. It looks reasonable. She reached out. She ate. Adam followed. And in that moment, the night changed. There was no thunder. No fire from the sky. Just silence. Then understanding. Their eyes were opened. Not to wisdom, but to guilt. They saw themselves differently. They felt exposed. For the first time, they felt shame. They covered themselves with leaves. They hid among the trees. The garden that once felt safe now felt too open. Sin had entered the world. God came walking in the garden, as he always had. But this time, something was different. Adam and Eve had eaten. They were hiding. God called out, "Where are you?" Not because he did not know, but because they were no longer standing in the light. Fear had entered. Adam spoke, then blamed Eve. Eve spoke, then blamed the serpent. And the truth was revealed. God spoke to the serpent. Behind the serpent stood Satan, the deceiver. The serpent was cursed. From that day, it would no longer stand upright. It would crawl on its belly, moving through the dust. Then God spoke against Satan. The deceiver was exposed. From that moment, Satan would walk the earth, working in darkness, deceiving mankind. But God also spoke a promise that one day, the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. God spoke to the woman. Life would no longer be easy. Pain would enter childbirth. Sorrow would enter the heart. Yet life would continue. God then spoke to the man. The ground was cursed because of him. No longer would food come freely. The land would fight back. Thorns and hard plants would grow. Man would work the soil with effort. From that day on, man would eat by the sweat of his face. And for the first time, death was spoken. From dust you came, to dust you would return. Before they left the garden, God did not send them away uncovered. He made clothing for Adam and Eve. He covered them, even in judgment. There was care, even in failure. There was love. Adam and Eve were sent out of the garden, not because God stopped loving them, but because innocence was gone. They could no longer live forever. In a world now touched by sin, God placed guards at the entrance of Eden. The way back was closed. As darkness fell outside the garden, Adam and Eve stood together, no longer naked without shame, no longer safe without effort, but still together. The night was quiet again, yet this time, it carried sorrow and hope, because God had not abandoned them. The story was broken, but it was not over. And so began the long story of humanity, a story of loss, of choice, of wandering in the night, and of a promise that one day the way back would be found. If this story has helped you in any way, take a moment to reflect on what you learned and share it in the comments. Until then, walk without fear, hold on to hope, and remember that even in the darkest night, God's love is still present. Subscribe to Israel Bible Stories to continue this journey together. The story continues.